Welcome to the Sheff United Way. My name is Hal. Let's talk about Mason Holgate. The Blades have been linked with a loan move for Everton's Mason Holgate. He's 26 years old. And one thing I really like about him, he's a Yorkshire boy. The Doncaster-born former Barnsley and West Brom defender is a right-footed centre-back. Do we need that? Who can also play right back, although not very often. He's regarded as a quick, aggressive, tough tackler who is good in the air. When I say regarded by, that isn't by everyone. I've spoken to quite a few Everton fans who have tried to put me off of that opinion. That isn't my opinion, but that is certainly, when you look up the stats of the boy, what comes back. Mason Holgate has worked together with Paul Heckenbottom, first off when Hecky was a coach in the Barnsley Academy, and Holgate was playing in the junior ranks, and Hecky was boss at Barnsley when Holgate was in the first team. At the time, Hecky took over when he replaced Danny Wilson, another former Blades boss. That was when took over as caretaker. I think in 2015, Wilson incidentally gave Mason Holgate his senior debut. And, Danny Wilson was good at that, wasn't he? Bringing on young players, as was Paul Heckenbottom. Indeed, he still is. Previously, Holgate has said of Hecky, he was a coach in the first team when I was there, and I would say he has had the biggest impact on my career. I still phone and speak to him now. He watches my games, still gives me advice, and tells me what I should be doing. When I was at Barnsley, Hecky and I used to do a lot of one-on-one work to improve my all-round game. We would watch clips together and stay behind to do extra work, all geared towards helping me get to the next level. That's the end of the quote. So there's a relationship there between Paul Heckenbottom and Mason Holgate. So you can see why a number of people in the press have put this link together. As mentioned, Mason, 26 now, but has missed time with injuries. That's a concern. But then you look back at when he was fully fit, Holgate was Everton's Players' Player of the Year under Carlo Ancelotti in 2020. I think that's the best accolade as a player, to be the Players' Player. That, I think, means the most to players. Any players watching this? Tell me if I'm wrong, but I think that's certainly how I would feel. Here's what 𝗜ļi𝗱𝗂𝗂 had to say about Holgate. I won't do the accents. I did not know Mason before I came here, and I was surprised by him. This is what Ancelotti said to EvertonFC.com at the time. He showed in this period a lot of quality defensively. He is really focused in his defensive work. He has the quality to be at the top as a defender. He's fast, strong physically, and good with his head. He is a complete defender. He is really young and wants to improve. He's made no mistakes in the games under Ancelotti. Nothing serious. If he retains his focus, he can go to the top. I think he is going to have a fantastic career. Well, that's from Carlo Ancelotti. That's a man who knows about defenders. Now, I've spoken to Everton fans, and they would dispute that he has made no mistakes in games line. I heard that once or twice, maybe more, Mason Holgate has had the odd error in him. So that's an interesting collection of quotes there from Carlo Ancelotti. We know he's really competitive. He is a fighter. But to be a fighter, you have to use quality in the right way. And it'll be interesting to see what, of course, happens with Mason Holgate's future, because it does look like Everton need to get some players out for financial reasons. And when we talk finances, we often mention the name of El Acanto, Darren Smith, well known on Twitter. He said a long-time target of the Blades when we were last promoted, was seen as a perfect addition after a decent spell at West Bromwich Albion on loan the previous season. In the end, Everton decided to turn down our loan offer and take a look at him instead. Then, in the autumn before the Jan window, talks continued. He wasn't playing, Blades still keen, and a deal done to bring him in January 2020. Then he suddenly got in Everton's side, played out of his skin, and the deal was off. So much so that once the window closed, they gave Mason Holgate a new 5-year deal with a truly eye-watering salary. Since then, though, his career at Goodison has stalled. He still has all the stats on our database to suggest he can fit comfortably into the right centre-back role and also cover right-back in midfield. No surprise, then, that he is back on the wish list. A loan, if completed, that will be expensive and uses up one of our domestic loan spots. He needs to get back to those 2019-2020 levels again, but with a bit of TLC and a regular start, you think that could be possible. That's what Darren Smith said. So you've had a Carlo Ancelotti quote, you've had a Darren Smith quote. Those two have probably never been quoted back-to-back before in their entire lives. I personally don't think this is a viable signing. His wages, as just mentioned in that previous quote there, would be too high, even on loan, because people sometimes think, oh, loan, that's a cheaper option. Not always. And let's say even if Sheffield United were just paying a percentage, but of course that would depend on the percentage. And, if it's a small percentage, maybe a deal can be done. Everton want to trim the fat. They want to cut costs, and some wage being paid by another club. It's better than no wage being paid by another club. But while we're talking of other clubs, another club could potentially offer the full amount in wages and other fees, and then suddenly this becomes more attractive to the Toffees, and you could argue it might become possibly more attractive to Mason Holgate himself. And the reason I say that is it will indicate there is a good chance that this other team, this fictional other team, maybe Forest, I don't know, could sign him permanently, as they'll be in a financial position to do so. And, maybe the Blades will, after a successful season, staying in the Premier League. But Mason would have to weigh up in his mind, well, which team of all that are interested in me is most likely to stay up, because then it's more likely I would go there permanently. And I think for lack of disruption, players would obviously rather stay somewhere for a longer period of time than regularly start to move. And Mason has been at Everton for a while, and he probably likes that. The fact that he stayed in the same place. No one likes moving. Hey, anyone who's moved house knows that is without doubt one of the most stressful things you'll ever do in your life. I'm sure he'd rather avoid doing that twice in 2 seasons. I believe the Blades will look to the foreign market, both for a permanent deal and the loan market. You remember, you can have 7 overseas loans, and as I've already mentioned, only 2 domestic loans. And I think the modus operandi for Sheffield United will likely be we search for younger, up-and-coming European future stars. And when I say European, I know England is in Europe, outside of our Fair Isles. And I think we'll be looking with a higher sell-on ceiling and hopefully no past injury record of any substance. Every player's got an injury in their history, but not long-term stuff that could potentially flare up again. Fool me once, John Eberl. I don't see this one happening. And if it does, it could be a late loan swoop or to cover a sale that right now we don't see coming. I hope not the latter. I don't personally see the latter because, let's be honest, where would he play? Right centre-back. We are covered in that position with arguably one of our best players. In fact, not arguably, one of our best players. And then you think, well, Egan's going to play centre-back. As I mentioned, that one of our best players, that's 𝗂𝗓𝗄𝗏𝗄𝗏. That's who I'm talking about there. Could Mason play on the left? At time of recording, Jack Robinson hasn't necessarily, unless he's not told anyone, penned a new deal. So there's that left side. You don't want to start moving Egan or Anel about because that works. So then you're looking at that left-sided centre-back. That's a priority position. Would this be a backup? I don't think Mason Holgate is going to want to join as a backup. Everton certainly won't want to send him as a backup. So I don't necessarily see this one for a few reasons. Obviously, you need backup, but maybe not one with such high wage demands. It will be very interesting to see the rest of these transfers play out. There'll be lots to discuss and lots still happening. But Mason Holgate, for me, personally, I think very unlikely.